Hi, learner lovers, and welcome to another episode of Totally Not Taboo, where we talk about everything sex and sexuality that is considered taboo. Today, we're joined by Lady Magnolia, who is the headmistress of the Rouge Revue Burlesque Company, which she founded in 2010. She is also the producer of the Grand Exhibition, which is an annual fundraising event that has raised over 280,000 for rape crisis since its inception. From her Woodstock studio, she guides almost 100 burlesque starlets, thriving on the joy of building community and helping women celebrate and reclaim their bodily autonomy. Wow. Welcome, Lady Magnolia. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you with me. I have been wanting to interview burlesque for a long, long time. I absolutely love it. I think it is beautiful. I love burlesque dancers and how they express themselves, their bodies through dance. But some people do consider it taboo. So I know that when we spoke initially, I said to you, I'd like to know why burlesque is considered taboo. Your first response was, well, I don't think it's taboo.
No, no, but I do it every day, and my mom is perfectly fine with it.
Awesome. So before we get into why some people might consider burlesque taboo, please would you just tell us more about yourself and how you got into dance and burlesque dancing and yeah.
Sure. I grew up in the garden route, and I was never into sports as a kid or a teenager, but I did love dancing. So I had sort of my modern dance classes pretty much every day. And I also had a godmother who was my aerobic instructor throughout my teens, and she was injured. And so I actually started leading classes for her when I was 16. And my dreams at that stage were actually of becoming a nature conservationist. But because I was teaching exercise and really, really enjoyed it and really enjoyed the company and the camaraderie of the women in class, obviously, most of those women were a lot older than I was. I decided to move to Cape Town and come and do my diploma in sports training and exercise teaching, which I did. And in that time, I met my very first belly dance teacher. I had not, even though I come from the garden route and could certainly be considered to be quite a hippie, I had actually not ever seen belly dancing up until that point. And I loved the silk saris draped on the walls. I loved the incense burning as we arrived at class. And so little by little, the exercise classes that I was teaching kind of morphed into more and more belly dance. And I opened my own belly dance studio in 2003 in my lounge in Takai. And belly dance they say that belly dance and burlesque are cousins, burlesque being the naughty cousin.
Mm.
And so the same principles apply in terms of body positivity and, expressing ourselves in a sensual manner. But belly dance has quite strict rules about making sure it is always sensual but never sexual, and sort of, erring on the more conservative side. And having done belly dancing for around 10 years, I was at a place where I was kind of ready to explore a little bit more of a taboo, risque side of things. And so I actually went to a pole dance class just to try something new. And I didn't enjoy pole dancing. It was too difficult and too many bruises. But my two teachers, Diva Disaster and Scarlet Hearts, were starting to explore burlesque at the time. And so instead of pole dancing, I pursued burlesque with them. And it was something that the glamour of burlesque. Dita Von Teese was kind of our original point of call back in those days.
Yeah.
And the glamour of burlesque, the sensuality, but being able to be a little bit more naughty really appealed to me. And because I'd been teaching belly dancing for 10 years already, I like to be the boss.
Yeah.
I shortly opened my studio, the Rouge Revue, in 2013 and have been going strong ever since. So sort of it was an unexpected, completely surprising turn of events that I became a burlesque dancer, but one that has really, I think, been just such an incredible journey. And it does mean that I get to indulge my love of the feminine and of building community and seeing women thrive and flourish in their skin in a world that really spends a lot of time telling us to be dissatisfied with ourselves and our physical bodies and our looks. And so for me, seeing a dancer come to their very first class dressed in a baggy t-shirt and hiding in the back row, and 3 months later witnessing the transformation of that same person now in, stay up stockings and high heels, and feeling beautiful, feeling strong, feeling worthy in their body, is really one of the things that I love. I think it's probably the thing I love most about burlesque.
Sure. Well, I can feel my cheeks burning, kind of, because this just speaks. Pardon?
Wait till I take my clothes off for you.
Not burning as in blushing, but just, like hurting from the smile from ear to ear, because this just speaks to me and resonates with me so intensely. Because coming from a background where I've always been so self-conscious about my body, but still trying to, should I say, come to terms with my voluptuous self and self-love and acceptance in my voluptuous body, has at times been good and positive and successful, and other times it hasn't been so successful. So I think that we work on ourselves as women to constantly be in that self-love place where we can be in love with our bodies, in love with who we are at that time in our lives. But it's a struggle. It's always that up and down, depends on where you are at in your life. So
Absolutely.
embracing who you are as a woman is a very challenging experience.
Yes, absolutely. I am kind of going into perimenopause, and my body is also starting to change. And I have also historically, even though I do this and even though I preach this, I've also historically always tried to be thinner, always tried to work harder, always tried to, yeah, be different to who I am. And I'm realizing now
Mm.
that, my body is going to do what it does, and my focus has to shift from, oh, I want to have this, what whoever deems as a perfect body, to now I'm exercising because I want to be strong, and I
Mm.
want to be physically able and capable to climb up mountains so that I can go and sunbathe nude and skinny dip in waterfalls. And even as somebody who's done this for 20 years in a space that I'm constantly preaching about loving your body, I have to give myself those same lectures all the time.
Yeah,
And I think that goes for most women, I
yeah,
don't know who decided what we should all be aspiring to, but I think for me, burlesque really is about saying that, yeah, we reject that notion, and we're actually going to find a way, as difficult as it may be, to be at home in our skin, to celebrate. One of the introductions I do for every new beginner class is to remind people that all of the pleasure we experience, all the pleasures in life, exactly, lying in the sun, drinking a glass of wine, having an orgasm, climbing a mountain, all of those beautiful things come to us via this body. And if a friend of ours was showering us with gifts, we would be warm and kind and appreciative and loving to them. I'm going to start crying.
go for
And yet, how cruel have we all historically been to our bodies? It's not okay. So, yeah, so for me, burlesque is about rejecting that and really having a relationship with my body that is one of kindness and appreciation and gratitude.
Beautiful. Absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree. And I was at a conference once about 2 years ago in Cape Town, and we were gifted with a dance at the end of the show, at the end of the conference, with a burlesque dancer. She was so beautiful in her skin. She was voluptuous. and she came onto the dance floor in a really busty outfit. She had on a G-string and feathers and makeup, and her hair was big and beautiful, and she was doing these very erotic dance moves and really in her voluptuous, sensual state. And I couldn't take my eyes off her, obviously, and she was a large woman, but so beautiful. And I couldn't believe her agility as well, because it sometimes is difficult to move as a large person. Well, when I say large, more voluptuous. And yeah, she was just so in her beauty. It was just so incredible to watch. And I think maybe I was at one of my larger points in myself. And I just thought, wow, I really want to do that. I want to be able to be, because I'm a dancer by nature, and I was shamed as a
Mm.
young kid. I remember in
Yeah.
my dance classes, we had to line up in a row, and my teacher would select us one by one. And the ones who had to come to the front were the ones who were told you need to lose weight. And I was one of them. So I was body shamed from a young age as well. And it held me back, in terms
Mm.
of my expression of dance. So
Mm.
I was looking at this and I thought, wow, I would really love to do this and just be so beautiful in my semi-naked body.
Mm.
So tell me why, I mean, you don't consider burlesque taboo, but why would some people consider burlesque taboo?
Well, I think firstly, female bodies have been objectified for
Mm,
so long that maybe for some people it's hard to separate the female body as simply something that is natural and that exists outside of the sphere of sexuality, that our bodies are a natural thing that we all have, we all live in them. And so the idea of a woman as simply as a sex object is so ingrained in our culture that there is, but it comes with that sort of objectification of women comes without the celebration of that very woman and over and above her body. So yeah, when we see porn, we're not interested necessarily in the story, that woman's history and everything that goes with it. It's just boobs. Here are the boobs and whatever that's stimulating in whatever sense. And perhaps people who don't like that view burlesque in the same way. That the body is a shameful thing that should be hidden, and sexuality is a shameful thing that should be hidden. And certainly for us in the burlesque community, I'm also a lesbian, and so I also think I live in this really amazing bubble where I'm surrounded by other queer people. So I forget that there's homophobia. I'm surrounded by women who have learned and done the hard work of being at home in their skin, and so I forget that there are people outside who don't like that. So yeah, so I guess I would say, for the main part, it's just a lack of understanding.
mm,
And it's easy to judge something that you don't know and don't understand and often have not experienced.
mm,
I imagine that many people who have negative ideas about burlesque, if they were to come to a burlesque show, they'd probably have their minds and hearts change quite quickly. But at the same time, I also am perfectly happy to accept that if I went to a rugby match, no matter how amazing and fantastic those rugby tries are, if that's what they're called, it wouldn't be, oh, I love rugby. So I don't mind if you don't like burlesque, but I do think it's important to at least kind of know what it is
mm.
or having an opinion about it.
100%. So there is a slight, I mean, dancers do remove their clothing.
Mm,
So there
mm.
is an association with stripping as well.
Yes, yes.
So I suppose that there lies the taboo as
Yes,
well.
that it's such a tricky question, and I'll just say outright, I don't want to be disparaging to strippers in any sense. And
Mm,
that's why that question is always a little bit tricky, because in saying it's nothing like stripping,
mm,
it's othering strippers, and I don't want to
mm,
do that. But So there are many, many similarities. And yes, so essentially, if you don't know burlesque, let's just quickly cover that. Burlesque is a performance art form that incorporates humor, it can incorporate satire, it can incorporate political statements, it can be personal stories. But at the heart of burlesque is striptease. So most burlesque performers will strip down to pasties, which are little nipple coverings, and panties, whether those are huge comical granny panties or the tiniest g-string you can imagine. But that is what makes burlesque burlesque rather than cabaret, which is kind of similar in terms of the movements and even the music choice. But yes, we do take off our clothes, and the storyline can be anything from look how beautiful and sexy I am to I've got my wall of photographs of performers up here, and so there are three different pictures of the same performer on the wall. One of them was her first piece, where it was kind of a tribute to her culture. Her second piece was when she was, I think, 9 months pregnant, and so her reveal was actually of this beautiful preggy belly, and I think she had her little baby a week later. And then her most recent piece is a piece where she imagines her little boy growing up and leaving home. And so actually during the piece, she's a washing line, and she hangs his tiny baby grow, and then his 5-year-old baby grow, and then 16. And she got in this piece, she waves goodbye to him and experiences the heartbreak of a mother, and with her little chick leaving the nest. So as I say, one story can be, have you seen my legs? They're gorgeous. And another story can be, oh, I'm projecting into the future to this feeling of loss that I'm going to experience when my son leaves home. So I think, yeah, so in that sense, I hope that covers that. Yes, there is striptease incorporated. No, it is not stripping that you would see at Mavericks. And I think for me, another important distinction is that for the most part, of course, I know, there are many women who go to traditional strip clubs, but for the most part, I would say that in a strip club, one is performing for the male gaze. Where burlesque, our audience is 75% female, sort of pretty much across the board. And yes, I always joke that the 25% of men in the audience are the long-suffering husbands who've probably been up all night rhinestoning their girlfriend's G-string, wife's G-strings, and the gay best friends,
Why is that? That is so interesting. Why is it? Do you think it's because women they secretly desire to have that freedom? Or do you think it's just entertainment? I have a sense it's that we we do we do long for that freedom of expression. What do
Yeah,
you
I would
think?
say so. I think that also there aren't a lot of, well, if you went to the ballet, it's highly unlikely that there's going to be a wide variety of body types and colors, orientations represented on that stage. And so it's not often that you can go and see a performance and see yourself reflected on stage.
Yes.
Whereas burlesque, we try to make space so that everyone in the audience can kind of see themselves on stage. One of my oldest performing student is going to turn 70 this year. As I said, women who are 5 days away from having a baby, it's not often that you see a woman who's about to burst within pregnancy presenting in herself in a way that goes, look at me, admire me, celebrate me. So I think that as women, yeah, as you say, we long for that recognition, we long to be seen. And maybe burlesque is a starting point for that. When you see the dancers on stage, there's a spark of recognition there. And whether you then decide to join burlesque and embody that for yourself, or whether it simply means you go home that evening and when you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, there's a gentleness to the way that you perceive yourself, and maybe even a little bit of spark, and there's like, oh, look at, actually, I'm quite
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose that mirrors my experience when I watched the burlesque dancer. Yes, sorry, continue.
Oh, yes. And I think that we also kind of have a society that very much pits women against each other. We much being taught to compete, or told that we need to compete with one another. And I think that many of us long for a community where we don't do that, where we sort of celebrate and uplift and revere each other. And I think I certainly strive to kind of cultivate that kind of culture within our studio. And I think it's a very large part of why there are 100 women who choose to be a part of this community, because that's what they're seeking, and it's not something they have often encountered.
Oh, I just think it's so wonderful. Really, I advocate
Anyway,
for this.
yeah, women loving their bodies, feeling good in themselves, supporting other women, totally taboo.
Absolutely, completely. Wow, that really is. So, wow, I'm a bit stumped for more questions because I think, tell me, I did have a thought about Moulin Rouge.
Mhm.
Is there a similarity? You know, the show is so
Rouge in Paris, or the film?
the both the film and well,
Oh,
the play, you know, the theater
mhm.
and the film, and yeah, how does that
Yeah,
compare?
I always joke also around the movie Burlesque, that because a lot of people's initial contact with burlesque is through the film, or yes, something like Moulin Rouge. And I always joke that we have a much smaller budget, but much more nudity. So, so, so either way, you're in for a treat. I think that we all can only aspire to the levels of glamour and grandeur of the Moulin Rouge and the movie Burlesque. So I think the theatricality of it is similar, the sense of decadence and opulence. But I mean, I think I haven't watched Moulin Rouge in such a long time, but I mean, I think the character Satine, she's seeking love. She's, my dancers aren't going to go home with the members in the audience necessarily.
Yeah, yes, yeah, I get that. Do you think that your dancers are auth- authentically, have they married that sense of love of self, or do you think it is a case of fake it till you make it?
It's probably a bit of both. I would say that, absolutely being okay and at ease and in love with your body is probably quite aspirational, because we do just live in a world that is constantly telling us that we're not good enough. So I don't think that burlesque is a cure
Mm,
for that thing that we experience as women, but I do think that it's a very good aid to on that journey.
mm,
So I think that sometimes it is a matter of faking it till you make it. We spend quite a lot of time, or I have recently been spending quite a lot of time thinking about and hoping to kind of convey, what is confidence? Because I think that's kind of one of the main bits of feedback that I get from people who see shows, is I love seeing these women so confident on stage, and I want to have that. But so I've been thinking sort of what is confidence? And obviously we think of confidence as something that is projected.
mm,
It's the way you show up in the world, and it's something that we feel it coming from the confident person. But I also think that confidence is about an openness. So when I explain it in class, it's sort of, yes, it's what I'm projecting. I know my worth, I know my value. Here are all the gifts I have to offer the world, and I'm pushing that energy out. But at the same time, I really feel it's a two-way street, because at the same time, I also know all the gifts that the universe has for me. So it's both projecting outward and also being open and receptive. And I think maybe that's quite a good starting point to get to a place where we are more okay with ourselves.
mm,
It's not just up to me to send out this aura of everything's great and fine and I love myself. It's also about being open to all of the things that are going to make me feel all of those things.
mm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
think it's
the words sex positivity, non-judgmental, the sexual human rights, all those kinds of things are coming to me right now. And I think the most poignant one is sex positivity.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's also, my studio, I only teach women, and it's a space, obviously it's very body centric, because
Mm,
we are firstly, most people dance in quite little clothing. And then when we're doing our performances, we're taking things off. So we're very much focused on our bodies for an hour, that hour of your class. And so it is and it's one of the few places where it is appropriate, it is okay to make jokes about bums and boobs and kind of for the focus to be there, which I think is also quite unusual.
Mm.
It's certainly I aspire for it to be a really safe place in which we can. Yeah, I think there's a lot of humor when you're in a room full of half-naked bodies, and we do a movement, and then everybody's bum. You do one bump, but your bum bumped 3 times, and so there's a lot of laughter and playfulness involved as well. And I think that that when you're playing and when you're having fun, it's easier to learn, it's easier to absorb things, it's easy, it's just easier to be positive about things that have historically maybe been a little tricky or painful or difficult. There are women in this community who are here very specifically because they've experienced some kind of sexual trauma, and they no longer feel safe in their bodies, and they've come specifically to claw their way back to a sense of being autonomous, a sense of being okay, a sense of being able to go back. Yes, I can experience pleasure. Yes, I can indulge in the beautiful things in life. And so it's not, of course, it's not therapy by any means, and it's not necessarily something that we talk about in class. It's kind of, it's an underlying, it's something that happens I think quite organically as you just step more and more into your body.
It's food for the soul.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that any kind of free dance is food for the soul. And then adding the playfulness is just a cherry on the top. So I used to do Nia. I don't know if you know Nia dancing, which is also encourages free dance and expression of dance and expression of the body. And it is food for the soul. And women, we need that. We need that release. We need that playfulness. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves and without judgment and without body shaming and things like that. And I think it's just such a wonderful art form. I really do. I think it's fantastic. So you teach, your studio is in Cape Town, did you say, or in Cape Town?
Yeah.
Say again?
In Woodstock.
Woodstock, that's right. You did say so. And what is available for women in Johannesburg?
There is, I think the burlesque scene in Joburg is quite a lot smaller, but there is a company called Vintage Nouveau Burlesque. I actually have a meeting with them on Wednesday, also on a Zoom call. But yeah, I'm not really connected to the Joburg scene, but they're absolutely, Vintage Nouveau is just one of the companies that I know of. And yeah, as I say, I think their scene is a little bit smaller, but I think, there's always room for growth. And yeah, I think that I'm not sure if there is any more. I know there was some burlesque in Durban at one stage. Because I'm from the Garden Route, I haven't done it in a while, but I used to sort of go up there and do a workshop every December holiday when I was visiting my family anyway. So yeah, there are ways of finding burlesque.
How come it's so big in Cape Town? What do you think? Why do you think so?
Gosh, I don't know. I guess Cape Town is probably one. It's the queer capital of South Africa. We are quite cosmopolitan here. Yeah, I wouldn't really be able to say why, particularly in Cape Town. Maybe there are just a lot of people here who are very passionate about it. I think burlesque did kind of originate here in Cape Town, and has had, I would say, maybe consistency. The dancers who sort of pioneered the Cape Town scene have stuck around. It hasn't been a passing phase. There's been consistency, and I know my best friend always says that's what she thinks. So the reason is that my studio is successful is because I sort of have consistently been there. So maybe that's what it is, but I really wouldn't know.
So interesting. Well, it's been absolutely amazing speaking to you. Annette, I'm happy to hear if you have anything else, any words of wisdom that you would like to impart to our audience about burlesque or about belly dancing, anything that you'd like our audience to know about yourself.
I think just, that I think it's okay that as women that we struggle with our bodies. It's not our fault. It's unfortunately it's kind of been dumped upon us, and there's quite a lot of resistance to us shedding that. It doesn't serve conserve the system for women to be empowered and feel beautiful and not need to change themselves. So it's okay that we struggle with it, but also it's important that we resist it. And that doesn't have to be through burlesque. That's in I for some reason my Insta algorithm recently has been giving me a lot of kind of creative dressing videos, and not, and you know, and like thinking about what you wear as kind of arty and as a palette to express yourself. And I really love that. So I guess finding ways, no matter what that way is, something that appeals to you, that feeds your creativity and that feeds your lust for life. And where I saw another thing the other day saying, you know, where we place our attention, that is where your attention is, where you live. And so if all day you're scrolling on Instagram, that's your attention. And at the end of that hour scrolling on Instagram, what have you got? Nothing, probably a sense of yuckiness. So I love that thought. Your where you place your attention, that is literally your life. And that was a few days ago, and I'm just kind of repeating that quite a lot. Where am I going to place my attention? Because one day it's going to be gone. And then that will have been my life. So I think, yeah, just to women in general, be mindful of where you place your attention.
I love it.
Place it in places that feed you and that bring you joy and that spark for you and that create magic. And so that's a very good place to start.
I absolutely love that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to use it in a post.
Sure, sure.
Absolutely inspirational. And yeah, wow, you've really been an inspiration to me. And I hope that other women who listen to this will be inspired too. And I think that what you said about creativity and expressing yourself through the clothes that you wear and the playfulness, I think women really have lost that sense of childhood inhibition, the ability to be silly, to dress funny, and well, dress funny, to be creative with their dress and not feel self-conscious. And yeah, just going back to a childhood state of freedom and inhibition and
Yeah.
just play.
A
So
sense of wonder.
a
I think a
sense of
sense.
wonder, absolutely. And I do that with my couples. I encourage them to bring joy and playfulness and passion into their relationships, because that's what's missing. We become
Yeah.
so careful, and so we watch our every move and every word we say, and we become so scripted. Yeah.
Yeah. I know a couple of people have said, you know, the opportunity as an adult to get on stage is very rare unless you are in amateur dramatic society or an actress. There is not a lot of opportunity to actually get on stage in front of an audience and have the experience of the stage lights. And if you think about it, again, going back to that childhood sense of play, so many of us were constantly doing plays. You know, your poor family had to sit through hours and hours and hours of plays on the grass. So it's innate within us to want to be seen and tell stories, and somehow kind of, yeah, for many people I think the last opportunity to do that was when you're in school, and 20 years have gone by and you forgot how much you loved that experience. So yes, I think maybe that's also something that draws to people to burlesque. It is an opportunity to, even though we're you know, our stories are now of a much more adult nature, it's still an opportunity to tell stories and be seen and have attention. I think that's, again, another thing about women. You know, we're kind of asked, we're told to make ourselves smaller, and the energy of burlesque is the opposite of that. The energy of burlesque is, look at me, here I am,
Yeah,
look at me.
I've had this theory, and it came out of nowhere. But I want to know if you agree with me. I believe that women unconsciously, or maybe even subconsciously, have this desire to be strippers, because they have this unconscious need or desire to be desired by men or a man. So you're on a lifted platform, a stage, men are looking up at you, and you have the power to seduce. You're desired. And I think that as women, I don't think it's a conscious thing. But if we had to make it conscious, I wonder how many would say, you know, yeah, I would like that fantasy to come true, where I can be admired and desired. and wanted and seen by a man or by men. No.
I don't know about the men part because that's not my preference.
Yes, yes.
A lot, a huge part of the burlesque scene is queer. It's in fact most burlesque around the world. I don't know statistics, but much of the burlesque around the world is sort of headed up by queer people. So for me, certainly the sort of the desire of a man isn't the end goal, but yes, desirable, desired, and yes, and seen and worshipped. You can take it so far. Yes, so far as to want to be worshipped. And yes, so exactly, burlesque is a space where you do get to go and just take up space. Maybe that's also what it boils down to, space. Yeah, being seen, being desired. Yeah, I think those things are innate, probably to humans. And this is a great place to make those fantasies come true.
And it's taboo, but it's not taboo. So we can act out our fantasy.
Yes, I imagine that is the case with most taboo things.
Of course. Absolutely correct. 100%. Lady Magnolia, it's been really a pleasure to chat to you today. And it's been enlightening and inspiring. And I do wish you so much more success in reaching so many more women who wish to express themselves sexually, sensually, to love their bodies, to love themselves. And I hope that this message on this platform will go out and reach many other women. So thank you. Your Instagram handle?
Instagram handle is the Rouge Revue, and that's my studio, and my personal one is Lady Magnolia Burlesque.
Outstanding. Well, learner lovers, you heard it here on Totally Not Taboo. So stay tuned for our next episode.